The first topic we wanted to discuss was 23andMe's bankruptcy and leadership change. The genetic testing company 23andMe, once valued at $5.8 billion, billion with a B, has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy following its rejection of a takeover bid from its co-founder. And now it's kind of in a bit of a limbo.
Yeah,
I believe this was set up by the former girlfriend, wife, partner of Google co-founder, right, Mike?
that's right. I forget if it was a wife or a partner, but it's funny. I saw the social media fodder today. I'm like, make sure to request to delete your 23andMe data, and hopefully it'll get done before the bankruptcy gets finalized. So I think everyone's concerned, like, who buys this data and what happens to this data. So if you gave them your genetic data and it gets acquired by somebody you don't like, do you still have any protection over this data? Like, what's going to happen to your data? Who's going to end up basically purchasing it? It's pretty interesting question.
Yeah, it's true. I'm advising companies in med tech and biotech, and 23andMe comes up over and over and over again as either a success story or a cautionary tale about like, oh, we don't want to do what those guys did, dump lots of money and beat direct to consumer growth, and oh my God, and we got to make sure we find a business model, and look how great they were at building consumer interest, and it's kind of like this push and pull of 23andMe as the poster child and the cautionary tale. I mean, it just strikes me as a bit shocking that they couldn't find an application to monetize all of this rich data.
I agree. And I mean, I think of 23andMe as a medical company for me, right? Like, I really used it not only to figure out my ancestors and who are related to, but also some specific genetic conditions. And it brings up this question, like, there's functional health and all these kind of high valued, medical grade startups that, if you sign up, you're giving them tons of your data and you're relying them to be there. And the question then comes with, in the wake of a bankruptcy or somebody be acquiring them, what happens to your data? So you thought you were giving your genetic data to a protected source. You think that you're with a medical grade company that's going to be protecting your health records. What happens if they go out of business? Where does that data end up? And do you feel good about that? And maybe there's a risk here in utilizing venture capital that may or may not be permanent for medical grade services.
Yeah, I think for consumers, it's a data question, but for founders and for operators, reading the tea leaves from the outside, it feels like just a giant, deep leadership and product dysfunction that you can have such a strong brand, such a strong data asset, such huge backing from incredible people, smart people all around, and deep dysfunction that you can't find the logical adjacencies, the business model, the product, like, surely there was something in there to go do other than sit around and die slowly.
I agree.
The one thing that I talk to a lot of biotech and medtech companies I advise is like 23andMe is a really bad example because you only need to get genetic testing once. It's not like a blood test or a microbiome test where you can do that actually every month, every 2-3 months, because the system changes. There's no LTV for or longitudinal LTV for a genetic test.
So you think it was a business model problem because, like, I paid one time, I wasn't subscribed to it. Suddenly, I didn't really upgrade my test. Like, I know that I got my genetic testing with 23andMe a long time ago, and they came forth like, you need to get version 2 of your test done, and I never really signed up for it. But your point is that it's a one-time revenue source that didn't have sustainability, and we're assuming that revenue was the problem.
Well, I'm a product guy, so I think it's a revenue problem, but revenue problems are product problems. It's like they didn't find the applications of the data. They didn't find the next test to give you. They didn't find the next reason to believe. So I think it's a product problem. And then I think both product problems are leadership problems. It's just like set up, have some vision, have some other adjacency, keep going.
Well, you have to also amazing, like, with everything that's happened with AI, the next version of 23andMe will probably be like 1,000 times smarter and better, right? Like, well, we'll actually be able to tell you if you start feeding genetic data into AI. I mean, obviously a lot of privacy risks around that, but the next version will be probably pretty incredible.
All right, well then let's segue that into one big Google adjacent failure, because I don't know, there was some family relationship to Google there, to a Google success, I guess. Google has acquired Wiz for $32 billion. Now, other than peeing, I didn't know what Wiz was until this announcement. So let me give you the story just a little bit here. So Alphabet plans to acquire cybersecurity company Wiz for $32 billion, making its largest acquisition ever. Wiz was founded 5 years ago. 5 years ago, that is a lot of equity accretion. It's rapidly grown to an impressive revenue growth and robust product line, and it's solving cloud security. So across multi-cloud, it can detect security penetrations And it's obviously going into the Google Cloud security offering over there, and increasing competition with AWS and Azure. And now Google has an offering, one of their cloud services, one of their GCP tools, which can work across AWS and Azure as well, which I think is really smart.
Do you think this is like a bolt-on where basically if I use Google Cloud Services, I now can utilize this service across other instances? So this is like an addition to their current cloud business?
Yeah, I think it's an addition to their business, but I think more importantly, it's a Trojan horse into their competitor businesses, right? So it's like, oh, don't worry, you're on AWS, but you can just use a little GCP, use a little Google tools. Our Google Wiz is compatible with AWS. You should try that. And then once you're in Wiz, you're upselling or cross-selling over to GCP. Like, oh, you're using S3. Maybe you should consider using Firebase for whatever.
And I mean, you have to assume that like the current rate of active enterprise grade hacking at the cloud level, whether it's on consumer data breaches or company data breaches, has to be escalating at an immense pace. And again, introduction of AI and these like AI agents and massive levels of compute have to basically escalate this. So do you think Google's not only making a bet saying, yeah, I want to expand our services so that we can touch some components of AWS or whatever, but also, do you think that they're positioning this as saying like the future is going to have a lot of cyber warfare and a lot of hacking? We have to basically be bolting services up to kind of participate in the defense of that?
Yeah, it's AI changes the equation for everything everywhere all at once. And as a operator, as a startup founder, you've got to think like, where do we position ourselves to win? And misinformation, disinformation, it massively increases. Cybersecurity threats massively increase. Political unrest potentially increases. And you got to think through all of the second, third order effects. I mean, I don't know what Wiz's posture or technology stack for AI specifically is, and but certainly a first class team technology business in that space that you can build on something feels right to me, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's a good bet. I think that cybersecurity is going to get way more important to people's lives. I think data breaches are going to be prolific and everyone's going to be impacted by them. And, right now, if I think to myself, like, who's really protecting me, who's protecting my data, like Google isn't who comes to mind. Like, I'm assuming AWS, I'm assuming Google services, help. But I think like having businesses that I trust that are kind of on consumer side to protect them from data breaches is probably a great bet for Google. And if that's an expansionary path for them, that's super interesting.
Yeah, it's absolutely. And what it really says perhaps much more broadly is M&A is back, right? By way of context for those who aren't following this stuff as closely as us nerds, Mike, for the last, 2, 3, 4 years, one of the dings against the Biden administration, one of the reasons I think that millionaires and billionaires and the tech elite love Trump is because they believed the Biden administration and Lena Khan especially was hostile to M&A. I mean, I think rightly believed, right? There was pretty high probability they'd try to shut down one of your big deals. And so, Khan is out, Biden is out, Trump is in. Say what you will about him and his buffoonery. Now you can go buy things again. And as we've talked about on the show before, big tech making big deals sets big valuation ceilings, which sets big public equity valuation caps, which set, big Series A, Series B, Series C valuation kind of caps. It decompresses the entire Silicon Valley venture capital ecosystem, and allows everything to just flow more easily and for us to head back to some level of ZERPy goodness. You're a capital allocator. You do this all day, Mike. You see thousands of companies to invest in to support. Like, does this affect your psychology? Like now, yeah, exits are possible again, IPOs are possible again. How much does it affect your day-to-day investment decision making?
Well, the way it'll affect it is if you think about all the investors I talk with, right? And so let's say that we're talking with a few hundred investors to invest in our, science fund 4 or whatever. Some portion of them will be receiving proceeds from this particular acquisition, right? Like you said, like 32 or whatever billion will kind of flow out. A bunch will go back to investors. They'll see major gains, and hopefully they'll want to redeploy that capital back into venture and basically find that same loop and cycle, right? So as M&A becomes healthy and as values unlocked through these types of public or private transactions, that capital hopefully flows back into the base level seed fund, Series A, B, C, D, E, F, funds in order to basically fuel more innovation. So you're exactly right. There's the kind of hopefully removal of fear that the SEC might block transactions, because hopefully under Trump administration, those transactions get through and we're not seeing a bunch of, potentially monopolistic pushback. And the second piece is that as the capital flows back to allocators, and particularly LPs for us, they'll actually redeploy within venture. So you're right. It does kind of create this expansion effect that should create more capital to early and mid and late stages. That'll flow more to venture, into more innovation. That'll start up more startups and go through that process. So yeah, it's a super positive move. In addition, I think we're all waiting for when the public markets feel good again, right? There's a whole bunch of consumer IPOs ready. In our space, Poppy was just acquired, which was a really big deal because we do a lot of things in CPG and in beverage. And so seeing code that also kind of unlocks value and unlocks movement. So as all this stuff happens, that log jam of companies that have been waiting to be acquired or waiting to go public, hopefully that starts flowing. And then suddenly you get more capital moving through our system and we get to go build better companies.
It's super interesting how different pockets of the world interpret these events in such different ways. Everyone from over on the AOC world or whatever, Alina Khan world is like big tech buying big deals bad. And then on the business side, it's like, holy shit, we could start to deploy capital and invest again and create jobs again. And like there's this kind of the wheel keeps turning.